time for the Get to the Point review.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Get to the Point review podcast. I'm your host, Kelly McKinney of Hohenheim Productions.
And I'm your other host, Josh Gibson of Fourth Wall Players.
And this week we are coming to you for our Halloween episode. And with us this week, we have two guests. That'd be Walt and Tammy from the Edge of Insanity. And that's, I put Haunt Park. It's a haunted attraction, right?
Yep.
And that's in our hometown of Kokomo, Indiana.
Well, just north of Kokomo, actually.
Just north of Kokomo.
Mm-hmm.
Just north of Kokomo. Okay, first of all, how long have you guys been running the park?
This is our 14th season.
14th season.
Mm-hmm.
See, now I remember in high school, I think I went to, maybe it was right after high school, Edge of Insanity. I recognized the address.
Yeah, it's right down the street.
Okay.
Well, not right down. I mean, you have to go to 31.
Yes, but yeah, I know what you're talking about. Okay.
We're on the Grissom.
Yeah, we're up here.
Yeah, so we would be just south of you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so you started it 14 years ago. I guess tell us the story of how that started, how Edge of Insanity started. Go ahead. I get a little choked up talking.
No, I understand that completely. I understand that. Originally, he had been involved in, and we had helped him with a different haunt that was downtown. And it was a charity haunt for our dojo that we were all part of. And it was to make money for We Care. And we did that for 5 years.
I believe so.
And he had already been bit by the haunt bug, as it were. And then he really got bit, and that's when he decided he wanted to operate his own. He wanted to own his own, and it was going to be a business venture with his brother Tommy. And even though Tommy lived in New York, Tommy was opening like a haunted golf course kind of thing, a mini golf course that was thematically kind of more spooky. And he was helping Tommy with that. And then Tommy was a business entrepreneur. So Tommy was kind of the idea man to a degree as far as the financial aspects of it, and our go-to for advice. And like when we were choosing the property and things, Tommy was always there with us by way of a cell phone. So even back then, so we would shoot video and then send it to him, because that was before you could go live. And Tommy would be like, well, this is negative space, this is good, this, kind of advisory role. And but deeply involved from a long distance standpoint, deeply involved. And so it was meant to be a business venture. And then, of course, Josh was involved at that time. He was one of our original cast members. He was our first Dr. Weidel. And if he remembers, the day before we were supposed to open for the first time, Tommy had an accident and died. And so we did not open. We went to New York for a couple of weeks. We had to do all the funeral and those types of things. Yeah. And Walt was obviously very discouraged, and really, it hit the family hard. Yeah. And so we had to decide whether we were even going to open, and we didn't think we would. And then his dad flew down and said, "You're going to open because Tommy would want you to open. So what do we have to do to get this open?" And so mid-season, I think we were all there, like last minute rush to get the doors open. And we didn't have a lot of crowds because we had closed the first 2 weekends. So people were like, they're there, they're not there. Oh, they're there again. And I think we sold something like 54 tickets that first season. It wasn't a lot.
Yeah, it was first year, yeah.
And that was when we decided to make it a charity, all of that money. And that's why they said, hey, open it. And we agreed to, because they were building a scholarship fund in memory of Tommy. And so all of that money went to that scholarship fund, and thus a charity business was born as opposed to an entrepreneurial.
Right. Like just a for-profit, purely for-profit.
Right.
Yeah. And, one of those, and when something like that happens, it's not, at the very least, right away, it's not one of those, the show must go on things. It's like,
no.
No. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Wow.
We actually didn't even know if we would reopen the second season. Like, we debated whether or not it was cursed.
A lot of you guys did, because I remember that second year, we like tripled the amount of business, didn't we?
Yes,
Yeah, it got
Yeah.
so much busier that second year.
yes.
Right. Well, and then, let's say, here we are 14 years later, right? Someone still had the haunt bug.
Yeah.
Right? It didn't go anywhere.
We didn't expect it to blow up the way that it did. We thought we'd do it about 5 years. Really, that's what we thought. And then when we were getting to 5 years and it was really taking off, we thought maybe 10.
Yeah.
Like, at least in my family when I was younger, the haunted houses you went to became a family tradition. So you rely on them to be there every year. So one of those, like, okay, this is the last year. It's like, I don't, the people are going to come back. It's like, do you want to turn away 45 people every day because they're like, where's the haunted maze?
I also feel like what I really liked about your guys' haunted house and working in it is I feel like you guys put a lot of story and character behind what you were doing. Most of the other haunted houses around here are just like, let's put together as many random scary things and just pop out and scare people.
Right. They're
You're right on the money.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Their focus is just more on makeup, and rather than and throwing everybody into one attraction rather than creating an experience.
Right.
Exactly. That's what I was gonna say. We have always focused on being, and Josh knows this, very immersive theater. And we've hit the nail on the head because we did have a family or group that went through this last weekend, and he reviewed us and recommended us last night, and those were exactly the words that he used. He was like, these actors are amazing, and it is very immersive theater.
Right.
It was really fun. It was really fun to be a part of.
When I was looking at some of the reviews on haunts.com, they're all 5 stars. They're all 5 stars.
Oh wow. That's good to hear.
I mean, of course, every year you always have a few negative reviews here and there.
Right.
Those are not what stands out at all. You see that it's very, very close to 5 stars, and everything below it is glowing reviews.
Yeah.
So, just as both of us family men and entrepreneurs, I'm curious, what's the biggest factor in a season on whether or not it's going to be a successful season?
The cast, hands down. The cast. We already have known from the beginning, and that's why we thought 5 years, maybe 10 years, because
don't know how consistent you're going to keep the talent.
Well, that and you don't know how many times when you're going to burn people out, when they're going to be tired of doing it. When the cast is done doing it, it'll be done.
Right.
It's quite that simple, and it's something that I've accepted a long time ago. But I'm shocked that the cast isn't done yet. Like, we still have original members that have been with us the entire 14 years. And original members still pop back and are like, hey, I want to work this season. And they come and go. So that's one thing. And then our newer cast, the youngest cast that we have has been with us at least 4 years. The greater majority of them are in the 7 to 10 year realm. So when they're done, it'll be done. We bring on new cast every year, but this last 2 years we haven't because of the pandemic. It just isn't.
Yeah.
There's so much training that goes into doing this without having to train all the safety as well.
Yeah, right. The last year didn't count. No one counts last year. It was a whole screw up.
Yes.
Like,
actually, we had a good season last year based on the fact that we expected it to be horrible. We still made $800,000 for charity.
See, and that's the kicker for fall, because we had already been in this whole thing for 8 to 10 months. Everyone was dying to get out and do something. So the first chance they had, boom, everyone was out doing something. Yeah, that's awesome.
We just limited the amount of people. We did the time tickets, all masks, outdoor venue only. The asylum's been closed the last 2 years because it's just too close a proximity.
So do you think you'll reopen the asylum like next year?
That's our hope. That is our greatest absolute hope.
Nice. Okay, cool. All right. Well, let's see. Do you have any other questions, Josh?
No.
Before we get into it?
No.
Okay. Well, I'm curious. What you all thought about Halloween Kills, seeing as how that's our recent movie for this episode. We take a look at Halloween Kills 2021, as well as a review by Peter Travers from ABC News. I am very curious. Walt, Tammy, what did you guys think of Halloween Kills?
we thought we really wanted to watch it, but only Peacock Premium was playing it, and we don't have premium, and none of our other services had it.
Yeah.
Oh no! So you didn't get to watch it?
We didn't get to watch it, and I'm really sad because I'm really wanting to.
Oh boy. Well,
I told Josh, so he didn't.
Oh yeah, I just haven't had a chance to tell him yet. I got here running around.
well, this is the thing: is that before I watched the movie,
Mhm.
Tammy, I was in the exact same spot as you were. Okay, I was so excited for this,
Mhm.
but evil dies tonight in the form of mistaken identity. Okay, the movie itself we mistook for what we thought was going to be a good movie because of the trailer. The writing was copy and paste. I
Yeah.
say evil dies tonight because that line alone was said at least 25 times.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, I hate that.
They
Every
really wanted
single character.
They really wanted that to be a catchphrase.
Yep. It felt very soap opera-y. The only time we felt like we were watching a good horror movie is when Jamie Lee Curtis is on screen. The cool
Oh, that's to be expected.
the cool graphic deaths were no doubt from Blumhouse. Like
Oh, yeah.
that's Blumhouse's touch. They had some really, really cool deaths.
Visually, it looked cool. Yeah.
But otherwise it was boring. The scariest part about this was the lynch mob.
Which is like what?
Yeah, and so otherwise, like, I would summarize this to say that it was an extended teaser trailer prequel
Mhm.
because
Oh wow.
hour and 45 minutes, pretty much nothing happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. My get to the point review is much simpler than yours. Is basically evil may not have died tonight, but this franchise sure did.
Oh no.
Here's their catchphrase.
Not the
So-
catchphrase they were looking. That is not the slogan they were looking for.
Yeah.
That is not the slogan they were looking for. No. Well, this is what I thought was interesting when we were like looking at, especially when we were looking at the review.
Mhm.
There was a lot of criticism about the movie.
Mhm.
Okay. The only people defending it were people apparently the ones who knew that it was a trilogy.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was a trilogy.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to see Michael Myers get it. That's what I thought I was going to see. Apparently it's a trilogy. So this was just filler.
Yeah.
Oh,
So what we wanted to see in this movie is actually in Halloween Ends
Theoretically.
next year, 2022. Theoretically, because they have to make enough money to make it.
Yeah.
So, so I didn't know. I had no idea this was part 2 of a 3-parter. Otherwise, I would have skipped this one. And I would have been, I'd have held my excitement for 2022. So, especially because, so this is the most disappointing thing of this to me,
Mhm.
is that Halloween from 2018 was brilliant. I loved every moment of it. The casting, I mean, even the parts that were kind of campy, like the doctor letting him go in the
Mhm.
first place. Like, it's like, you know, I can get past that he's a psycho. Sure. Why not? We have to have this happen. So, you know, it's a needed element in the movie.
Yeah.
We've got to let Michael Myers go. Otherwise we don't have the movie. So yes, I can accept this. And then from there, it was just brilliant. But this one, holy crap. Oh, Josh, would you like to tell us what you thought of the review?
Yeah, sure. My get to the point review on Peter Travers is actually from goodmorningamerica.com.
Oh, is it? I have it
Yeah.
as ABC. Okay.
He tries really hard to spin the confusing themes as enticing, eventually name dropping every star who does appear in a desperate attempt to convince readers to at least consider watching.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, this was a really confusing review.
Yeah.
Thank you for the Peter Travers. It was really confusing because as short as this review is, it took a long time to say it sucked.
Yeah. He's really trying to go around it.
Yeah, he's doing as much as he can to go around saying it sucked. Much like the movie, it pulls its punches and like it lets the infectious Jamie Lee Curtis disguise the fact that it was a total waste of time.
Mhm.
Like that's the only reason Jamie Lee Curtis is in the movie. So that way you're literally just waiting to see Jamie Lee Curtis on film again because the rest of it is he's killing a bunch of nobodies that we don't care about.
Yeah, people that we were just introduced to.
That we were
all
just
assholes.
introduced to. That they're all assholes and stupid.
And I was like, are these characters created by Stephen King? Like the bully kids and everything? I was like,
The bullies were
it,
pretty
it,
bully.
it felt like a Stephen King movie, you know?
Yeah. It was pretty like an early Stephen King.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
I should say his books. I shouldn't say his movies.
Yeah, no, the movies are pretty terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So I guess I'm glad you didn't have to watch it because then instead of you just got to laugh at us.
Yeah.
Being
Now
like,
No, well, we'll fall on that sword eventually.
Yeah.
I still recommend watching it so that you can see exactly what we're talking about. It's an hour and a half that you won't get back that'll charge you up for 2022. You'll be like, okay, I need to see the third one just to redeem what I just did right now. I just did. Well, why don't you, since we missed Halloween Kills, why don't you start us off, each of you, with one of your favorite scary movies of all time, which, by the way, is the bulk of this episode. We're each going to list 5 of our favorite scary movies. I think Josh went specifically with franchises.
Yep.
I tried to go with. Never mind.
Scratch that.
I mixed and matched, so
Yeah.
I got a little
Yeah.
franchise, a little singular.
Yep.
I'm eclectic. It's what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We just sometimes narrow it down because we have so many options that we're just
Right.
like, well, we want to make a.
Sometimes we create rules.
I have less options because I don't watch as many movies.
Yeah, and for me, horror films, it's all over the place because I don't find horror films scary. So I only want to watch a horror film if I'm going to get scared.
Mhm.
And since most of them don't do that, I don't watch a lot of horror, So my short was very list pull from I had to think of things that really scared me in my childhood. All right, Tammy, why don't
Oh,
you?
I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, because that's when you're easiest scared, though, right? When you're a child. So
Yeah.
it wasn't easy
Okay.
because I'm old.
As a mole.
But you go ahead.
No, I was gonna say just
Oh.
go on.
One, of course, Halloween the original.
oh my God.
It was wild to me because when I originally saw it, that was, if you compare it to movies nowadays, it's almost two-dimensional, but
Yeah.
it's amazing that they did it on a shoestring budget with like 5 or 6 people, different people playing Michael Myers, whoever they could grab at the time or whatever. But it still became such a cult classic or iconic movie. I mean, holy mackerel.
Yeah.
I still like the original, though.
No, you're fine.
Yeah. It was just like to the action and all of that. I just enjoyed it.
Yeah, no,
My favorite.
I think it's a very good pick.
that's a great pick. Absolutely, easy shoehorn in for sure. Like that. I mean, the reason why we're still looking at Halloween and Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends in the first place is because they had such a great start. I mean, the whole reason Halloween, the first one, 2018, skipped all 14 of 14 of the sequels.
Yeah.
Forgot that they were ever made because the first 2 are standalone excellent films all by themselves. So that's an excellent pick. And
My first pick was 13 Ghosts with Tony Shalhoub and Matthew Lillard. I think it's a great mix of horror. The suspense was fantastic. They had great startle scares, and you can't go wrong with Matthew Lillard as far as I'm concerned. So
13 Ghosts, I remember seeing that in high school.
Yeah.
And I forgot about that movie. I completely forgot about that movie because I was afraid. That was around the same time as The Haunting.
Yeah.
And
House on Haunted Hill.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
They
Um,
weren't. I don't think.
impactful for me because they really to me brought in a whole new style of makeup and special effects that really hadn't been there prior to 13 Ghosts when it came to horror films.
Right.
Like they broke the mold on a lot of new things
Yeah.
and for different ideals of ghosts.
yeah, that like demon Saw visualization before Saw kind of feel. Yeah, I totally get it. Same thing with it kind of reminded me of Darkness Falls
Yeah.
in the sense that it was like the style of movie, the style of horror film. Those early 2000s ones seemed to like mix gothic and modern together so well. It's like, oh, we're in the early 2000s, so technology is available, but we're also in a house from the 1700s.
Right.
Combine those things. And yeah, 13 Ghosts, I remember there was that's the one where they're all like locked in glass boxes,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
Yeah, that one was creepy. That one
And the constant shifting walls and sliding doors and yeah.
I would say that movie probably inspired the visuals from Silent Hill.
Yeah, I would
So
agree with
much of
that.
it feels like crazy like that to me. All right, Josh, you want to go with number one?
Okay, so yeah, my first franchise that I did a get the point review on was the Poltergeist franchise. So mostly just the first movie I've talked about here, but a real estate developer and his family unwittingly move into a new house built on top of an Indian burial ground. Not only do they come face to face with evil, but they're living in it. I don't know about you, but to me, something about your house trying to kill you scares the crap out of me.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like you guys are already, I've heard so many mentions. I was like, I didn't even think of that one.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I didn't think of that one. Wow.
I did. I actually played around with that one for a minute and then I was like, no, I'm gonna go this way.
Yeah, that's a great pick, Josh.
Yeah, and two's even creepier because they've got the old guy.
What was number one again?
No, Poltergeist.
I know.
Right.
I was just gonna
Okay.
say it's because I had a thought about Poltergeist. Okay, because for me, it's like less about the house trying to kill you and more about how
Right.
uniquely American it is for something to be built on an
Yes.
Indian burial ground,
Capitalism.
and for that to be the motivation for why you're gonna die a horrible death.
Right. Yeah.
Is for the simple fact that you're American and we died
Is that-
200 or 300 years ago.
Yeah.
That's what's like scary to me about
Right.
Poltergeist.
No, that's a good point too.
For me is like so uniquely American
Mhm.
that we're dealing with the sins of our past 200-300 years ago. That's
Right.
crazy.
Right.
And recreating them. I mean, what?
Yeah.
Well, no, this is true. This is
Yeah.
totally true. Okay, so then let's see. For my first one, I guess we'll go with something from my childhood that's genuinely scary. Candyman from 1992.
Mhm, mhm. I knew you do get it.
You knew I do. Well, because how long have I gushed about this movie?
Yeah.
It is literally my favorite scary movie of all time. I grew up watching it. I grew up in a black neighborhood. So
Mhm.
it was much easier for me to imagine a black guy in a trench coat with a hook killing people.
Yeah.
So a horror film that lives in the real world in the sense that telling the truth would make her crazy.
Yeah.
And that she is truly alone throughout the film. Whether it's her husband, she has no one to turn to except for Candyman, which
Right.
eventually she has to. And so that to me is like when you can make the audience feel as alone as the main character,
Mhm.
that there's truly no way out. That's what's terrifying to me. And so many horror films today bring up this big climax just for Deus Ex Machina.
Right.
Oh, the sun came out and you accidentally dropped the cross directly on the Bible how you were supposed to, and now the demon's destroyed.
Yeah.
Like that's ridiculous. Like people die, things are terrifying.
Mhm.
For there to be no resolution and for that terrifying thing to still be out there is what makes it still scary.
Mhm, mhm.
So that's my first pick.
Yeah, that's a good
Candyman.
one. Yeah.
Very easy one.
And
to go
I
with.
expected it.
And you expected it, yes.
That was a good.
All right, Walt and Tammy, what's your pick number 2?
I like the Rob Zombie remake of Halloween.
Okay.
I thought it was well done, and one of the parts that I liked is it filled in a lot of information that you didn't get from the original.
Yeah.
Of course, the actors did a great job, and it was more intensely scary, I guess you want to say, with the character that played Michael Myers in the remake.
Mhm.
Meaning his big, huge, giant, just
I'm
Scary
sorry,
biker
the
looking
child
dude.
Michael Myers was much more terrifying than the adult.
yeah.
He did that actor did really well too. I remember.
I thought they fleshed it out good, and I like to know like information and backstory, and like
Yeah.
not all of a sudden he didn't get his candy corn, so now he's gonna start killing the family. But in that one, it gave a little more reasoning why. So
Right.
I like that.
Right. I like horror movies that build on the mythos. Like I guess technically I have 2 honorable mentions that I'll get to at the end, but it's because of the mythos for one of those franchises specifically that I just, I'm not even a huge fan of the movies, as
Mhm.
far as, but when it comes to the mythos and like the storyline, I'm like, yes, it's great. It's
Yeah.
great. It's so detailed and filled out, and like
It
these,
seems
you can,
empty, or you end up, there's something missing without some of the backstory.
Yeah.
right? Because
So,
otherwise, they're just
Explain it. I mean,
yeah.
that's
well,
how I'm like,
otherwise, they're just irrational evil force,
Right, which
you
is
know,
not
right?
exciting.
And we can't relate to that.
Mhm.
You know, so someone who maybe doesn't have all of the pieces in their brain left because of a terrible trauma in
Mhm.
their childhood is just a little more relatable for
Mhm.
most people, because we
Yeah.
can relate to it to some extent. Even if we knew someone who was
Yeah.
abused and
Mhm.
everything else, we can go, that would be awful, that
Mhm.
would be terrible. Agreed. Yeah, that's a good one. And one thing that surprises me is how great of a filmmaker.
Zombie became.
Yes,
Mhm.
Rob Zombie, like that. That's just from House of a Thousand Corpses to all
Yeah.
of those. They're all great. Those are all.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think the ones that I've seen of his, and it's not a lot because he is probably the most terrifying for all the horror movies for me,
Mhm.
partially because he really hits on the human nature that creates the beast.
Yeah.
And that's very triggering for me. So it's hard for me to watch. It's really hard for me to watch.
Right.
But for that reason, I put him very much near the top of the list when it comes to directors of films, particularly of that type, because he is able to push all of my buttons. And then I'm like, no, sir.
Right.
Right. And I could see that if the movies pushed all of my buttons more, I could see that, like just like with Candyman. I can't tell you how many times I've rewatched that just in my lifetime. It's ridiculous. All right, Josh.
I
Wanna
think
go
it's
with our next
Tammy's turn.
one? Oh,
Oh, yeah. I get to go. I'm sorry.
because Tim, we were talking about Rob Zombie. I
Yeah.
thought it was like, oh, Rob Zombie's your next one. They both had Rob Zombie in that cute. No, I'm just joking. Okay,
No.
sorry, Tammy.
The Scream franchise. That's where I dove into a franchise because I can't really pick one. And I really like nearly every character in it because I thought they really hit on like Dewey being so quirky and strange, and Skeet Ulrich is a hot mess.
Yeah.
Again, Matthew Lillard because he's the bomb.
Mhm.
But I really enjoyed Randy's character. I loved him trying to theorize throughout
Yeah.
Right.
that he got to live through. But they also, I think, they really drove suspense well in those films. It was a little bit less blood and gore and a whole lot more suspense, like the crawling through the car scene in the second one. I was nearly having a heart attack. Randy on the couch made me move my own couch as a full-blown adult of children. I moved my own couch back against the wall because I was like, nope, can't be in the middle of the room anymore.
Yeah.
No one's thinking behind me. And
Yeah.
what's interesting about the Scream franchise too is that it especially the first movie inspired so much in our modern horror, like so much. If you
Yes.
rewatch the Scream, you're like, holy crap, they redid this scene in
Mhm.
such and such film because. And then when I think back to horror films where when you're actually trying to guess who the killer is and you get it wrong the whole film, like that was one of the first ones. I mean, I was young when it came out,
Right.
granted, so I don't know how
But they did a great job of misdirection.
they did a really good job of misdirection.
They were like, it's this guy. You're
Yeah.
going to believe this guy, but now we're going to show you why it's not. So at the end, we can show you it is.
And at the same time, that's one of the first ones that really had like the double killers.
It is.
That-
it is
that-
the
that
fir-
was-
it is
that
one
was
of the
the
first
big-
ones
that
that
was the
had
big
right where it
twist,
wasn't
that
just
was more
one
than one.
person; it was
Yeah.
two people, so that way we could have the misdirect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
And I enjoyed the comedy too. The comedy aspect.
Yeah.
It's what we do in our haunt. Make them laugh and they forget that you're there to scare them.
Right.
And that, and like in the reviews, that was the most prominent thing I kept seeing is that there was like we were scared and laughing the entire time. And that's the mark of a good haunt. Like you're having a good time if you're both scared and laughing
Mhm.
because you're having a good time. And that's I saw that in like almost every review. Laughing and scared to death. It was great. Yeah, and complimenting
It's a nice roller coaster ride. And that's what Scream provided for me.
Nice. All right, Josh, what's your next one?
My next, it's technically franchise, so don't at me.
Okay.
The Lost Boys. The first one's really the only one worth watching.
Yes,
but
yes,
it
exactly.
is still a franchise.
That's a good
that was
pick.
good, yeah.
So my get to the point review on it is a prime example of the original carrying the entire franchise. What's not to like? It has the Coreys at their peak, Jack Bauer and Bill as vampires, and even the obligatory greased up sax player on steroids.
The Lost Boys, this is the problem with this. I consider that like an 80s like romance movie or like action. I don't consider it horror. I was like just so young that I just don't consider it horror. Okay, but that's an
horror was cheesy.
Yeah, it's horror was cheesy. Yeah,
well, and it was less like that. It was cheesy to me so much as it was more like, because you're rooting for the main characters, I don't feel like they're in danger so much as I'm just rooting for them, right? Like, so, well, I was never terrified for Corey. I was never terrified.
I was actually.
Yeah.
Well, it's like less for me because for the simple fact that his older brother Michael is a vampire, like as like he's gonna protect him. Like we know that because Michael's a good person. Still, it's like, yeah, he's having trouble dealing with the fact that he's now a vampire, but other than that, he's still Michael, which is the loving older brother who cares about his mother and his grandpa, and so like that's the only reason why I can't otherwise it would have made my list. If my brain it's in like, oh yeah, Lost Boys, that's horrible, because Michael inspired my wardrobe for probably like 12 years. Shades and leather jacket. I had everything except for the earring at the time. Now I've got earrings.
Visualized it like instant visualization.
Yeah, everything but the earring. I was like, that's what's crazy to me too. Is when I think about, if you take a look at pictures in the '80s, how everyone was dressed like Pat Benatar.
Yeah.
I did the same crap, but with Justin Timberlake and Michael from freaking The Lost Boys. Like it's ridiculous. It's so crazy how much it has an impact. Okay, well, since you went vampires, I'll go vampires next. Okay. I went From Dusk Till Dawn, 1996.
Really good one.
Yeah. And see, and this is one I had to look up. I was like, wait, is it considered horror? Right? Because they fight back. Like that's
which is why I like it.
Which is why I like it. That's why it made my list in the first place. Because From Dusk Till Dawn is an anti-hero horror action flick that's Tarantino's pre-Grindhouse soiree. Like it is a party beyond belief of excellent action and really gruesome horror elements. Like you're still afraid of the vampires, but you are ready to kick their ass because the characters you're following are all badasses.
Danny Trejo.
Danny Trejo. God, he's awesome. Cheech Marin.
Yeah, Cheech Marin. Yeah.
It plays two roles.
Yeah.
Two roles. Awesome. That's really funny. So From Dusk Till Dawn, that was an easy shoe-in for me. I just wish it had scared me more. It was just more of one of those.
It was more campy than it was.
Well, I just love it because they fight back. And that's what I always want in stupid horror films is for the the victims to fight back, and they don't, or if they do, it's really cheesy and Deus Ex Machina.
Right.
So yes, From Dusk Till Dawn, definitely easy pick for me.
Yeah,
easy pick. And Walt and Tammy.
Well, I'm old, so I remember the old ones.
You keep saying that.
The Exorcist.
Oh, that's a there's a lot of
like 3 or 4 movies. I like the original, of course. That's what I base everything off of is the original and how well they do, the sequels and all of that. And they did have, I don't know if it was the third one, I can't remember the second or third one that I thought they did a really good job. They kind of went back in time to show you some backstory and all of that. And but The Exorcist was just like, okay, here's all your expressions for the 80s and 90s for some of us kids in school and all of that. But
you weren't in school then anymore.
No, I graduated in 80. That's right. All you know.
Nice. Yeah, well,
but I liked it. It wasn't like big blockbuster, but there was a lot of moments.
Yeah.
Like really eerie.
Yeah.
The stone steps and the music, and then the silhouette of the priest and this, that, and the other thing. And it's just, I thought there were a lot of good points that just set you up to be eerie.
It's definitely a haunting freaking movie. It's a staple.
I mean, it's still considered one of the scariest movies.
It's
of all
still
time, so,
like there wasn't a list that I looked at
yeah,
where they were talking about the top scary movies that The Exorcist wasn't on.
yeah,
And it's interesting that you brought up 2 and 3 because right 3 is the one where Linda Blair is pretty much all grown up, right? Like she's in her 20s. That one was scary because it's more of like the mental residual effects of
Yeah, the
everything
trauma,
that's happened.
yeah.
Yeah, and how like she can't even trust herself anymore, and that's terrifying too because she's still all alone, kind of thing.
Mhm.
That's a really good one. Yeah, the Exorcist franchise, and it's just because I stay away from ones that I feel like are gonna be on
Everybody's list.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 Otherwise, that would have been on mine too. Because yes, Exorcist was terrifying.
Yeah.
It was definitely terrifying. The practical effects with everything from her makeup to vomiting, like and down the stairs, all super creepy stuff.
Especially when you consider when it was made.
Yes, exactly, and that's why it had to all be practical, which makes it more scary. Like
I think, and it also keeps it from dating itself.
right,
Yeah.
like the Thing or the Fly, like
Right.
even those
Oh, the Fly.
are terrifying because of the practical effects.
I was gonna say it's because of Jeff Goldblum.
Well, some people find them terrifying.
I love Jeff Goldblum.
I know, me too.
He's an avid fan of our podcast.
Yeah. They all
Yeah.
are.
Be kind to Jeff. He's my buddy. No.
He's our buddy too.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's our buddy. All right, Tammy, your next one.
My choice was House of Wax, the Vincent Price version, not the remake.
Not
The
Paris
original House of Wax.
I had that on the list.
Did you?
Hilton. It has Paris Hilton and Jared Padalecki in it, and Chad Michael Murray.
What?
Yeah, that's the remake. It was junk.
It was.
Um,
I watched it just to see Paris Hilton die.
it was.
Oh,
it was
that sounds like
Yeah.
a good idea.
actually a very worthwhile endeavor.
Okay.
Just YouTube it.
So there, yeah.
The original is near and dear to my heart because I was brought into horror movies by my grandmother. My grandmother was a horror movie junkie, but only on specific types. She loved those animal vengeance horrors, the birds, the Day of the Animals, the Day of the Frogs, all that kind of stuff. Anytime Animal Kingdom was going to eat people, she was in.
Right, monster movies. Yeah.
She liked a certain amount of Hitchcock movies and things like that. The House of Wax was one of her favorites, and I watched it for the first time there, and I was immediately hooked. And I absolutely have loved that type of that genre since, that whole Victorian era, cobblestone hills on the cobblestone in the dark alleyways, and somebody's chasing you. Kind of that Jack the Ripper effect.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And it's easily hands down my favorite, and I still watch it to this day, and I think it never loses its punch.
I've never seen it.
I've never seen the original either, actually, but I'd love to.
You really should, because it's absolutely worth your while. It really, what's the best way to put it? It stands up to the time, considering when it was made versus where we are now. It really stands up. Acting was phenomenal. And it had that perfect Boris Karloff creep factor that era had. And it was actually meant to be a 3D movie. So they were bringing out 3D effects. So they start with a completely unrelated scene just so they can play the 3D where somebody's hitting the ball on the paddle.
Okay. Gotcha.
You never see the guy again, and he has nothing whatsoever to do with the movie, but that theater going, look, it's 3-dimensional.
Yeah. Nice. Their first.
Which is nice to know. But actually, it's probably one of Vincent Price's very best movies.
Love it.
Hands down.
Yeah, I've started really. I've been watching a couple of older movies that I've had in my DVD collection for a few years here recently, and Vincent Price has really popped for me in a couple of them.
So then, from the name, I assume that it is about a killer running a wax museum, and he turns his victim into statues. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
And it's one of Vincent Price's less campy. He's not very campy in this. He comes off as very sincere in this.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's super creep factor, and really, honestly, quite worth the watch.
Right.
Huh. Okay. All right. Well, Josh, what about your next one?
My next one. This is I got to do this one. Someone has to do it. My next Get to the Point review is on the Saw franchise.
That was my honorable mentions.
As much as I personally don't really care for this franchise.
Yeah.
It undoubtedly changed the way horror movies would be made going forward. The first one was pretty well written, and I so wish the original plan to only take place in the room underground was kept. Can't win them all though.
Yeah, see, Saw made my honorable mentions list.
Mhm.
That's because of the mythos.
Exactly.
Like
yeah,
I
yeah.
could care less about the super gruesome
Yeah, I
deaths.
don't care about the
and,
gory
like,
deaths
yeah,
at
yeah,
all.
yeah,
Yeah.
It was more about the story behind the Jigsaw killer. I think
Yeah.
in 3 and 4 is when they really start getting into his backstory, like who he is and why he did the whole thing he did. Like tells the story of how his wife died, how they
Mhm.
had lost his unborn child, and all of these things, seeing him from his eyes can very easily be attributed to the fact that people are shit, and that's why these things happen to him.
Yep.
And so that's why he takes revenge as the Jigsaw killer.
Mhm.
It's the convoluted mess that the movies become after the second and third one, where it's like,
Yeah, I've only watched. the
we
third
still
one,
want
so.
to show them some of the mythos, but we're going to throw any character that was willing to be in the movies
Yeah.
as part of the story. That's what frustrates me about that. That's why it made honorable mentions, because I'm
Yeah.
not a huge fan of the movies themselves,
Mhm.
just the mythos.
Yeah.
Like just the mythos.
Right.
I've never seen them because I'm not old enough to watch that kind of gore factor.
I saw the first one,
Yeah.
yelling at the
I can't.
screen
Mm-mm. Nope.
during the last scene.
Nope.
'Cause I didn't have that coming.
Right.
Nope.
Yeah, right. That
I
he's
mean-
just there on that. He was laying there. That's
I was
really good. No, I'm saying that was his big shocker when he was watching the first one.
Was that a twist?
It was definitely a twist.
Oh.
Yeah, that it was the guy laying
No,
on the
I
floor
didn't.
that was supposed to blow his head out.
Yeah, I
brains
figured
out?
that was him.
Oh, I didn't know.
Mhm.
I didn't know. I over here acting like he wrote the movie.
I did. I was like 13 when it
This
came
guy,
out.
this guy. All right. Okay, so following up the Saw franchise, let's see. Let's go with something that's in the same kind of year, in the same decade. I'm going to go with Paranormal Activity, the original, just the first one
Mhm.
from 2007, because $10,000 never scared so many people worldwide. And it honestly made me cling closer to my faith, because I'm not a big, like, Exorcist was terrifying because of the visuals, because of the time it was made, because, you know, as a parent, it's terrifying to think of
Right.
your children going through something you can't help them with.
Mhm.
Paranormal Activity scared me because it was so cheaply made.
Yeah.
Like when she gets pulled out of the bed, like that's scary. That's when it's like, oh gosh. Now, of course, they make some, you know, really cliche horror mistakes, like I'm gonna burn the cross and all this other stuff. It's like, of course demons are coming after you. Burn the cross.
Mhm.
But it was one of those things where you realize, like, without a really strong faith or belief in God, you're super vulnerable to that in the first place. So like it kind of made me cling closer to my faith when I first watched the movie.
Yeah.
It's interesting. This movie was successful enough that 2 years after it came out, 2009, was actually when I went and saw it in theaters.
Really?
2 years. Yes, it was 2 years after it came out. They
They,
put
like,
it back in
re-released it?
theaters.
Yeah.
Yes. And so that's when I had seen it. So I just can't live with $10,000, and then it had a worldwide release. Like that's
Right.
for indie filmmakers, that's ideal. Spend $10,000 and make like 28 million worldwide because
Right.
people love your movie. That's pretty great.
Mhm.
Yeah.
10,000 well spent, I'd say.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that's really great about the horror franchise, the horror film industry as a whole. That's where you see more of your independent filmmakers break through.
Well, and you know, so when I got into filmmaking about 12 years now. About 12 years ago is when I got into filmmaking, and I started with horror pretty much because, aside of buying fake blood, it's pretty much one of the cheapest ones to make.
Yeah.
And a lot of times because of just the horror formula, when people are being killed and everything else, they're on their own. So you're talking about one actor a lot of times for a lot of scenes, or two, because you've got the person being the victim and the killer.
Right.
Or whatever gruesome death that they're coming up with. But they're so cheap to make. That's part of what makes it so, I guess, not easy, but why there are so many indie horror films.
Right.
You know,
Right.
So
Right.
And yeah, it's so yeah, from Paranormal Activity. That's my, I guess, my number 3.
Yep, there you go.
All right, and Walt and Tammy.
Well, I had 13 Ghosts on mine too.
That's totally fine.
Yeah, that's
I-
fine. We have
I
overlaps.
like the actors. I like the way they did it. But I'm like, and Josh knows I'm the builder. So
Yeah.
I'm looking at all the mechanics and how everything's, all the gears and all the spinning things and the way they did the all the rooms and all of that. And the ghost freaked me out. So that was good. And it kept me on the edge during the whole thing because it's like sometimes you know it's coming, but it's still freaky because the character with the cage on their head or the babies or whatever, and I'm like, what are they coming up with next? And so I really like that one. I like Monk. What is
Tony Shalhoub.
okay? I couldn't remember.
He's brilliant.
And
Yeah, he's
did
one of my
really
favorite actors. He's
Yep.
so good.
And like I said, I love the mechanics and all of that sort of thing. And it's like almost constantly moving.
Yeah.
So this does this, and I'm trying to think, okay, this is how this works. I'm like, come on, it's a prop.
Yeah.
But still, I love that aspect of it as well. But the whole movie, I just really enjoyed that.
Right.
So,
Yeah, getting into the engineering of the set. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And I completely forgot that Monk was in it.
Yeah.
I completely forgot that Monk was in it. Yeah, I totally agree. That is a great one.
Mhm.
That is a good one. Tammy?
For me, I was back and forth. This one was a toss up for me. My particular favorite genre of horror is psychological horror. That's what I really, really
Right.
enjoy. I don't do as much. I definitely don't do the gore, and I don't do as much pop scare horror. I love psychological horror, particularly because my brain is triggered to predict the ending. So most of the time I do. So I don't know, a half an hour into
Oh,
the
geez.
Sixth Sense, I
oh
knew
my gosh, yeah.
Bruce Willis was dead. I mean,
And I'm looking at the whole thing.
And-
Really?
and
Are
he's
you
like,
kidding me?
and I'll be watching with him. I'll be like, all right, I already know. We'll
Oh my
wait and see
God.
how this plays out. And
Yeah.
he's like, we've been watching it for 25 minutes. I'm like, yes, but it's going to be this, and this. Let's see what happens,
Yeah.
But every so often they get me. And when they do, I really, really enjoy them. And one that did was Skeleton Key.
Okay.
Skeleton Key. Okay. Okay.
And it is technically horror, but it's not like super into the horror franchise. It's
Yeah.
psychological horror. And where my toss up was between the Skeleton Key and The Boy, because The Boy also got me. The Boy was more horror than Skeleton Key, but I think Skeleton Key was definitely more eerie and creepy. So that's why I ended up going with that. And I found a review by Roger Ebert that I was like, this is what I want to say. He wrote, there's a kind of moviegoer who likes a movie like this, no matter how it ends. It's about the journey, not the destination, even though the ending of Skeleton Key really is a zinger. And I was like, that's what I want to say. He's right.
Right. Like it was just good all the way through, basically.
Yeah, I just enjoyed the entire journey. Like I loved the setting, everything.
I have to rewatch it because I've seen I haven't seen The Boy. I've seen Skeleton.
Oh, you should watch The Boy.
A long time ago.
That was like 05 or something. Right?
Yeah,
I think I was either working at the movie theater or right before I was working at the movie theater.
Mhm. The Boy. Okay, I'm gonna write those down.
Yeah, The Boy is absolutely worth a watch.
Yeah, I prefer psychological thrillers myself too. And to me, those are a lot of times more horror than horror movies because horror movies, they're just trying to get you with jump scares or with
Right.
manufactured tension rather than someone genuinely feeling something. Yeah, agree. That'd be
That's
you
my
next.
turn, yeah.
Yeah.
So my next franchise, my get to the point review is The Nightmare on Elm Street. Eventually going campy to the extreme. The first movie was legitimately terrifying. The idea of teenagers not being safe in their dreams, forcing them to stay awake, makes for some interesting looks into the resulting psychological trauma. I liked seeing Johnny Depp getting eaten by a bed.
Like Johnny.
There.
Yeah, that for whatever reason that makes me think of Patton Oswalt joke about deathbed.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've had you listen to that before.
Yeah, you
He's
have
hilarious.
actually. Yeah.
He's great.
You know, the other one, like you were talking about earlier, like the camping ones where the people fight back. That's why I like the Dream Warriors one. It's a horrible movie, but I like that they're just like, oh, we're gonna take control, we're gonna fight back, Freddy and our dreams. I was like, that's really cool.
No, that one was the one that where most of it took place in the mental facility, right?
Yeah, they were all in the mental ward.
hospital.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, I love that one's my favorite one,
That-
and I don't regard them as scary.
No, not at all.
Just maybe it's because they're campy. Maybe I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's campy.
It's
Yeah,
so
can't be.
over the top. Yeah, it's.
But that one is definitely my favorite one,
Mhm.
and I think it's mainly because I was still a kid when I saw it,
Right. Yeah.
and so I already have a huge a overly active imagination.
Mhm.
And I was like, yes, motherfucker. Like, it was
Yeah.
one of those things like, why didn't you guys figure that out in the first one? Like,
Right, yeah.
bro, I'd have
Yeah.
had cannon arms from day one. You
Right,
know?
yeah.
You know, whatever. Like,
Right.
yeah, that one.
I like
Really enjoyed that first one because that was the first horror movie I saw in a theater.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I remember how old I was, and I'm not going to say when the first one came out, but that was the first one I actually saw in a big screen theater. And so it was terrifying to me because I had never seen a horror movie on anything other than a TV, my grandmother's TV, you know?
Right.
Right.
So I really enjoyed it. But as an adult, I've looked back and gone, oh my.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to see it because Robert Englund is easily one of my heroes,
Yeah.
and always has been. Like, I just love that dude. So I was like, whatever he was gonna do, I was like, I'll go watch it.
So I'm curious, when you saw it in theaters, there's with the Nightmare on Elm Street, there's supposed to be 2 endings, right? So did you get the mega happy ending, or did you get the
Rip
terrible?
through the door ending,
Yep.
and then the car driving away with his sweater being the top of the car.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep. Yeah, her mom just got yanked right through that little window on the door, and I was just like, ah!
Yeah, that mannequin was gone before we knew it. That's right. That was crazy.
It was so cheesy, but I was still very impressionable because I was in my early. I was probably
That's the thing. We only laugh about it being a mannequin now as an adult. When you
Yeah.
first see it, it's just the
It's just sudden
viciousness.
and-
Yeah.
yeah.
It's the viciousness
Yeah.
at which she gets pulled through the window that's scary.
Yeah.
Your mind doesn't go, that was a mannequin. Your mind goes, oh my God. Like, because we're not expecting it.
Yeah.
The most terrifying scene for me in that, and I cannot remember which one it was, but I think it was the first one, was those damn marshmallow stairs. Because y'all have had dreams where your feet sink in the floor and you can't run.
Yeah.
We related to that because I was like, I know what you're going through.
Yeah, right. It's like, I've most often the scary thing that happens in dreams that I have is that my punches have no effect.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right. So like when I decide to fight back, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's like I could pull back with as much force as I wanted. And for some reason, there's this padding of air 2 inches right in front of their stomach that keeps me from really connecting. That's
I think it says a lot about who you are, though, because that's that whole fight,
or flight.
flight,
Yeah.
or
Freeze.
freeze. Thank you. I couldn't think of the last word. And I'm the flight, so I get the marshmallow stairs.
Well,
You're the flight, you can't hit anything, but I bet you don't have marshmallow stairs, so just run away.
but you know what? This doesn't bode well for me though, because in a horror movie, I'd be the guy who dies like second or third because I decided we were going to fight back.
You'd be the guy trying to box Jason.
Trying
on
to
the
box
rooftop.
Jason.
Yeah. Yeah,
before I
but
get
I'd go
buried in half.
because I have a sprained ankle. So
Yeah.
Well, maybe, or just the lady who gets away who keeps tripping. You
Yeah.
know? Just make that much closer, that much farther away. Nice.
rolls down the hill.
Down the hill. That's right. Yeah. Yes. You're right. When there was nothing to trip over but yourself. Yeah. Which I watched Children of the Corn last night, and there was a lot of that tripping
Yeah.
over nothing. That was a lot of fun.
Oh, I hate that trip so much.
That was the first one, yeah.
That was little Malachi. You might just like kick him in the shin.
You know what though? But he's the scariest part of that movie.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely,
Like,
hands down.
Such
Yeah.
a gifted actor. Holy crap!
Oh,
Just a little.
That it's unreal. That's
the complex-
I've watched that times. That's a huge creep factor. That kid is amazing.
A little kid with a stone face that's not like
It's his face, his voice, and his eyes, man.
his eyes.
Well, like you watch the first, just 15 minutes of that before like Malachi really shows up.
Mhm.
All the kids that are delivering lines, they're clunky.
Yes.
And he has these long, complex lines where he has the full, like he is a kid that completely understands his role and what sort of effect he's having on everyone.
Right.
And that sort of awareness as a child actor.
He's a little genius.
Yeah. Yeah.
He really.
You can tell it's not even the character, it's the actor. He
Yeah.
is great.
Yeah.
You can just tell, like, even from the way he turns to look at cameras and everything like that.
He was a better actor. I can't remember the actor's name. I just remember that he was one of the Hardy Boys. That kid was better than that dude. He was better than the adults in that film.
Yes,
By,
he was. By
he's
far.
the standout of that film.
By far.
Yeah.
Like the guy with the blonde hair. I've seen him in tons of other things, but
That's the Hardy Boys dude. I can't remember his name, but he was a Hardy Boy.
yes, it's like
On something?
No.
Oh, well.
I just imagine his lines are sitting off screen and he's reading them. What do you mean?
Yeah.
Yes. Like that all the way through the 80s. So that's why.
Yeah.
70s too, because I remember as a kid watching him on the Hardy Boys and going, this is not believable.
Right.
And I wasn't a great judge of those things. So
No, but it still stands out in some respects, and especially in that guy's respects.
oh yes.
Yes. It's like, it's really hard to make your face completely expressioness, but he maintains that pretty well. That's his real talent. That's his real talent, remaining expressionless.
Yeah. It's your turn.
Is it my turn?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, then let's see. Since we're talking about campy, ridiculous stuff, let's go with Troll, 1986.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, the first Troll. So I had to go back to my childhood to find things that scared me.
Mm-hmm.
So this was made in 86.
Mm-hmm.
I was born in 88.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was young. So naturally it was terrifying to a kid.
Yeah.
And also I've been afraid of the works sandwiches like pretty much my whole life. Like it wasn't until I was like, I don't know, 24, 25, and I was like, yeah, sure, the works. Yeah, throw the works on it. Up until then, I just always pictured this little girl in a red, overalls going, ah! I'm like, oh my God. It was terrifying. I didn't want works sandwiches because I knew what that meant.
Right. Yeah.
I knew what that meant.
Stay away from those.
So yeah, and what was funny is I watched Troll, rewatched Troll, because I was like, okay, I know that this scared me when I was a kid. I don't think it's going to now. Troll 1 and 2 are both on YouTube, completely free. You can watch them. Troll 1, I watched Troll 1 over again and was like, okay, I remember being scared of this when I was a kid.
Yeah.
When I was a kid.
When you were a kid.
When I was a kid. But I remembered one particular moment from Troll 2 that scared me, even though Troll 2 was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever seen in my life.
Right.
And it was like the part where they all go into the church and everyone's like dancing and happy, and they've got like the fiddle going in the background. Like something about that like weird Mennonite church actually being a bunch of goblins that eat people was terrifying to me. Terrifying to me. But
I'm sure if I would have been terrified rather than expectant, but go on.
right. Nice. But yeah, so Troll beat up my number 4 for sure.
Wow.
I thought I'd take us back. That's as far back as I go, really.
Okay, a lot of mine are actually in the 80s.
About that one in a while.
Right. And when it popped into my head, I was like, oh yeah, freaking green stuff. Yeah, super scary. Let's go with it. Nice. And now we're back to Walt and Tammy.
Walt and Tammy, yep.
Mm-hmm.
There were so many, and I skipped through lists and looked stuff up. Dracula, the Untold Story. I like that one. I like that era anyway in movies. So that played to me in the beginning, and it played on emotions of the character in a different way, almost in a backwards type of way than some of your other Dracula movies in the past, where his wife dies, then he turns into a vampire because he does whatever. Yeah. This time he like turned into one, and then his wife died. So it was kind of a little backwards from what the norm led to be told over the years. I thought the actor did a good job. And some of the conflicts and this, that, and the other thing. And there was a little more information to the story, which I appreciate. And how he's constantly battling with himself over what he has to do and what he doesn't really want to do, but he has to do to protect his kingdom, his people, blah, 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 all of that stuff. And where he decides to do it anyway, and in some hopes that he'll be able to get out of it, but totally driven by the love of his family and his people and this and the other thing. So you're rooting for a vampire. I mean,
yeah.
But so I like that and the way they shot it and everything. I really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's Dracula: The Untold Story.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, who would you happen to know who directed that?
I'll find out for
In a
you.
minute.
I think it's hilarious that that's where he had the wax museum,
Yes.
Vincent Price.
I love Vincent Price.
And then
always have.
changed it at the last minute. So that's
Okay.
kind of, see,
Yeah,
you need
yeah.
to watch that movie. All right, hang on a second. I'm Dracula Untold. I want my IMDb. Thank you. That's faster usually. We'll
Yeah.
see.
Yeah. Like that.
Well,
Yeah.
because I ask because when I think of Dracula, I just immediately think of Bram Stoker and Gary Oldman.
I had thought about that one, but for some reason, I'm not sure why, I like the Untold Story better.
Well,
The director was Gary Shore.
Gary Shore. Okay. I recognize that name. I'm sure he's done a lot of other things too.
He's done Holidays, Untitled. I have no idea what that is. St. Patrick's Day. He hasn't done a lot actually. Like
Huh.
it's this kind of small films.
Interesting. Okay.
I mean, I've just seen the same three on repeat prior to the Dracula Untold
Yeah.
Stories.
Right.
Mhm.
I'll have to check that
At
out.
least according to IMDb, I'm blaming it on them.
I like the Bram Stokers, and that was super creepy in a lot of
In a lot of ways.
instances.
Yes.
Just the Untold Story just hit me for some reason. I'm not
Well, it's
totally
it's a different take on Dracula, and
Yeah.
that's always
Yeah.
refreshing, anyways, because people retelling Dracula, Frankenstein, like
Mhm.
all of these classic tales, they've been redone so many times. It's like, okay, at some point, like how many Jack the Ripper movies are we gonna make before we like know? Okay, we know who Jack the Ripper is. We know he killed people. It was gruesome.
Yeah.
Right.
Kind of thing. Yeah. So to tell it from a different perspective, kind of like the way that this is a bad example because it's not horror, but the new Robin Hood that they did. I'm not talking about the Egerton one. I'm talking about Russell Crowe.
Oh, that one.
Yes. Yes. Like, but that was a dark, I mean, semi-dark. It wasn't as dark as it should have been, in my opinion. But that was,
Yeah,
it was still
kind of half-assed that. Yeah.
yeah, it was, but like it was still a new take on it where
Yeah.
you know Robin Hood's not just this great guy and we're not just dealing it was different. It
Yeah.
was different. And I enjoyed that. But yeah, so like I think that Dracula: The Untold Story, that would be, I have that written down. I have to check that out too. That's cool. Tammy?
For me, again, back to it's my genre, man. Psychological and kind of that Victorian and that huge, more driven by suspense. The Others with Nicole Kidman.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
That is probably one of my hands down favorites. It's another one that I did not see the twist coming at the end. And I have a soft spot for Finola Flanagan, who plays
yeah.
Mills. She was huge in the 80s. She popped in every single 70s, 80s, and 90s. Every TV show there ever was, she had a one-off in every show, and I grew to love her over the years. And I really thought she was excellent in that. I thought the cast as a whole was really, really good in that.
It's an interesting one. I like
It's a
that.
good one.
It's
Yeah.
a good pick.
It's nice and different.
I still love that one. That's always going to be a fave.
I didn't expect that one. That was a good one though.
Yeah. All right. So I guess my very last franchise that I have a get to the point review on is Child's Play. It's another, yeah, it can't be one. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
look at that. We did not plan that.
Paired.
Did play.
Another franchise that went too long. Andy gets the hot new toy of the season, only to discover it's possessed by the soul of Brad Dourif. terrifying. They do come up with creative kills, which is what this genre is about. If you don't think dolls can be scary, just imagine that your Furby starts trying to kill you.
Yeah. Child
Furby's possessed. It's not hard to imagine.
Yeah, exactly.
No, yeah, Furby's crazy. Yeah, Child's Play. That's one of those ones that for me was like a shoe in. It's like,
Right,
yeah,
yeah.
I mean, especially because when it came out, when I saw that as a kid,
Mhm.
it was terrifying. But it was also, I think, Bride of Chucky ruined
Oh
the
my
Chucky
God, it
franchise
did.
for me because when I was in high school, I went to see Bride of Chucky and I was like, yeah, and then it was like, oh,
Yeah, right, exactly.
oh, okay, right, yeah,
Oh.
like I get it, but it's just kind of way too misogynistic for me,
Mhm.
like just way too over the top. Which I get it because of who the killer is supposed to be.
yeah.
It's supposed to make sense,
It-
but at some point,
It just it's one of those that turned into a parody of itself.
it did. It really
And-
did. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it just yeah.
Well, I think part of the problem is that was made in,
84.
I was gonna mid,
sorry.
wasn't it?
88.
And it started in the mid 80s and then it continued and progressed forward. And the 80s was hugely misogynistic era.
Yeah.
So in order to make something seem misogynistic, you literally had to just pound it home.
Mhm.
So then when you look at it from your eyes now, you're like, whoa, that's over the top. And we were like, he might not like girls very much.
Yeah.
Right.
Because that thought was so much different. So
Oh, yeah.
I kind of like looking back at things now for just that reason alone, because you're like, wow, how off were we?
Oh yeah, in Troll, okay, the or was it in Troll or in Troll 2? It's in Troll 2. In Troll 2, the girl in that is only 16 at the time of the film, and they have her in like this unitard where like that they told her to close her legs because if she had them spread, everything was going to be seen, right?
Mhm.
And I just know that this director was so perverted, like more sweat with like a sweat bottle because she's just glistening like the whole time. It's like
Yep.
Is that a Weinstein production?
she's 16 years old. The actress is 16 years old.
I was gonna say, to be fair though, Josh, it didn't have to be because that was just
Yeah,
commonplace.
Yeah.
Just
was,
like the 80s were horrible. That's why it cracks me up, all the people that are looking back on it now and going, God, why couldn't we have things like it was back then? I was there. It was terrible.
Well, and when people say that, the only thing they're really thinking about is the economy. How I could go out and without filling out an application, I could get a job and get paid later that day under the table, and that $40 would last me a week.
Man.
That's what people are thinking about when they're thinking about the 80s.
Mhm.
They don't realize, I mean, for the simple fact that the whole world gets offended by anything that happens nowadays, even things that happened 40 years ago. Like me and Josh are not people who are overly offended by things that happened in the past. We understand that it's a different time. We grew up in those times.
Yeah.
I mean, like, we enjoy a lot of awful comedies from the 2000s because we understand that they were made in a time when,
Yeah.
Right. Acceptable.
right, when people weren't so sensitive that, for instance, in Waiting, statutory rape's a joke.
Mhm.
In Waiting, it's a joke.
Oh yeah, you're right.
It's Ryan Reynolds wants to sleep with the underage hostess, okay, in that movie.
Right.
And it's played for jokes. It's played for laughs because we know that Ryan Reynolds isn't out sleeping with 17-year-olds. I mean, we hope he's not.
Yeah.
And but people would be wildly offended, like, oh, trigger. It's like you're triggered by comedy.
Mhm.
Okay, you're triggered by comedy. Keep the emotions where they need to be. If you go see a drama film, bawl your eyes out for that baby. Like, please do. Makes sense.
Plus, I think the point that the movie makes with that is, Ryan Reynolds is not a character to aspire to be in that film.
Right.
That's part of the point too.
Right.
Gotta
He's supposed to be
context.
yes, context. Right. Exactly. Not just the times, but the purpose,
Mhm.
like the intent. The
Yeah,
intent.
yeah.
We wrote an asshole character. We're not saying be him. Everyone wants to be Ryan Reynolds because he's
The
funny.
problem is a lot of people nowadays like want to aspire to be those asshole
Well,
characters. which,
and yes, it's just so confusing.
right.
We were holding society to a higher standard, but we're glorifying people who are complete assholes.
Yeah.
Completely, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Right.
But
Everywhere.
that's
Yeah.
everywhere. Yes, that is everywhere.
All right. You have one more, right?
I do.
All
Well,
right.
speaking of assholes, okay, we're gonna go with The Good Son, 1993.
Oh,
I was like, oh yeah, The Good Son. I
Okay.
love that movie. All right.
Because when you're a kid of a single mother,
Mhm.
this is terrifying. And my cousin is a sociopath. So to see someone made a movie about him is equally terrifying. Okay. Not only that, but like Elijah Wood in this movie.
And Macaulay, they're both in it.
It is Elijah Wood. Okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes I confuse them. Okay. Not Macaulay Culkin and Elijah Wood. I
Oh.
confuse Elijah Wood and
I know exactly who you're talking about.
you know who I'm talking about.
Yes, because everybody confuses the two of them.
I have no idea who you're
It'll come to me. Go on.
No. Elijah Wood and another child actor who's equally successful. The one from The Sixth Sense, right? Maybe is that it? I think,
No,
Osmond?
yes, I think that's who I confuse him with sometimes. I think
that's not. I
Anyway,
was
let's continue
it's
with
not
your
it.
review.
Anyway, The Good Son. Okay, but this like shaped my childhood
Yeah.
kind of thing. Like as far as how Elijah Wood is cautious and aware of his surroundings. He's not fooled by his stepbrother, in the sense that he knows he's a sociopath and no one wants to listen to him.
Right.
My cousin is the same way, hurting small animals and like just doing crazy bad things for the sake of being bad, and then rehearsing how he was going to apologize for it. All of that stuff. It's like
It's crazy making.
it
Yeah.
is. It really is. And not only that, but like when you see it as a kid, it reminds me of the movie We Need to Talk About Kevin, which was another 2014, I think it was Tilda Swinton.
Yeah.
And that one was a great one about dealing with a child who's a sociopath, but told from the perspective of the mother rather than from a child in the home. So just a crazy, crazy film. I loved The Good Son. It was,
Yes.
it was
Very good. I didn't think of that.
and I think it's listed more as a drama.
Yeah, it's really more of a drama, but yeah, it does
But
have
it's
some horror
horrifying.
aspects.
Yeah, it's
to it,
horrifying. So that wraps up my list with The Good Son. Does anyone have any honorable mentions?
No, I purposely kept some out because I figured I'd use them for a different list. So
Yeah.
I think I'm good.
Yeah.
I like Christopher Walken anyway.
Sleepy
But
Hollow.
Sleepy Hollow with Johnny Depp.
Yeah. Yep.
Christopher Walken in that role, I really want him out back. Because I would release all
He's
the liquids
creepy in
if I saw
in
that.
almost any role.
He definitely did not phone that in.
No, he didn't.
Like, he went all the way with that role.
He was straight up Ichabod.
Oh my God, it was,
Yeah.
and there were parts of it that were just freaky.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, there really were. For me,
kind of a different take on another movie where they didn't totally stick to the story, where he's a cop in New York and now he's going to Sleepy Hollow to investigate murders.
Yep.
Where he's a school teacher and he just comes.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
it started where it was a little difficult for me to that's not the story, but it worked out.
yeah,
And
but
I thought Johnny Depp did a good part in that. It's just, you're goofy, dude. Bring it together. And then Christopher Walken, I was like, all right, this is cool.
and that was Tim Burton. That was Tim
Yes.
Burton, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of those times when Tim Burton's visual art style really works. Yes,
Yeah.
where it really works in Sleepy Hollow, and especially because it's an urban legend.
I mean, the last time.
Yeah.
It might be the last time. Well, maybe.
So it might have been. I'm
might
not,
have
I'm not,
been,
I'm not
might have
counting
been.
future projects.
For me, my big besides Saw, my big honorable mention that didn't make my list was 28 Days / 28 Weeks Later.
Yeah, mine didn't.
I almost chose that.
Yeah.
Well, and it's because no doubt. So the Resident Evil video games are what are responsible for me loving the zombie franchise, survival horror.
I just love zombie survival horror.
Yeah, me too. I love zombies and survival horror. It was Resident Evil that got me into it though. And then, so all of the zombie films that I've ever seen, like I enjoy them, but when it comes to ones that made me, that I just love, like love 28 Days and 28 Weeks Later, both of those, because the opening scene in 28 Weeks Later is probably the most terrifying scene I've ever seen in a zombie film.
Oh yeah.
Ever.
I just rewatched both those films with Catherine too.
It is so terrifying.
Yep.
And not only that, but you're dealing with what's his name?
Carlyle?
Robert Carlyle. I was gonna say that, and I was like, no, that's not it. It's
It
Robert
isn't,
Carlyle. Yes. Like he's fucking genius. God. Like he has a terrifying, scary face.
Yes.
Like I just imagine that my face is molding to his scary face when he's running away from the zombies. Like I'm just like, like same terrified expression kind of thing. So I had to write that down as honorable mentions because I know eventually we'll have like a zombie episode.
That's what I was saving it for.
Yeah, saving it for the zombie episode, but I'll be able to go into
I want to do the zombie episode with you.
All right.
Since I chose no zombie movies for this, that is the epitome of my favorite. Like everybody has they like vampires or werewolves or whatever. For me, it's always been apocalyptic era zombie movies, like show.
There just aren't very many good werewolf movies.
What Teen Wolf was terrifying. Okay. No,
Werewolf
Well, the Wolfman was good. I like that.
Well, the
the
original
old one. Yes, the old one.
Well,
practical effects.
I can't think of it. No, it's more recent.
Yeah, they remade one with Benicio del Toro.
Yes, that one. I thought that was
He
pretty
looked
wild.
a lot like the Lon Chaney Wolfman, actually. They did a pretty good job with making him look.
Really, I haven't seen that one.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that one. See, when I think of terrifying werewolves,
Mhm.
what comes to mind is Monster Squad.
Mm.
The werewolf in Monster Squad was like to me the most terrifying werewolf there's ever been.
I always get them mixed up as far as which one came first. But is American Werewolf in London? Was that the first one?
That was the first one.
Yeah, that was the good one. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. People who liked Bush enjoyed the new American Werewolf in Paris. I like Bush. Okay, Bush did the soundtrack for that movie, and it was all right.
Yeah.
Just the soundtrack.
Anyway.
But American Werewolf in London. Yeah. Oh fuck! I can't believe I forgot that one. That shit. We need to redo the episode. I'm gonna redo my list. We'll take From Dusk Till Dawn off there, and I'll replace it. God, that's such a good one. American Werewolf in London. That to me is like the first time a zombie really scared me.
Yeah.
Yeah. His friend shows up.
I've always loved the movies, and I've watched almost every zombie movie there was, but the 28 Days and Weeks, oh my gosh. I was like, those are the zombies I can't survive. That's the apocalypse I die in. Like the slow gamblers, I got this.
Yeah.
I got
They made zombies scary
I
again. Because like really the zombie thing, I don't want to say died out, but it petered down a little bit.
Well,
before they came out.
Right. At least everyone had seen enough situations of people facing slow zombies that it's like, okay, most of us that know how to swing a machete or a hammer feel like we're competent enough that we could survive it. It stops being scary.
And they made it terrifying all over again.
They did. They really did.
Yep. Absolutely horrifying.
Right. Well,
I had an honorable mention of Split because I hadn't put it in because technically the M. Night Shyamalan movies aren't necessarily horror, but it was a more psychological horror type.
Yeah.
And that actor, which I cannot remember his name right now.
McAvoy.
James McAvoy.
Say it again.
James McAvoy.
Thank you. I had seen him in several other things.
Yeah.
But then I watched him in Split and did not know until halfway through the movie who that was. Like I had because he was so different. He made himself so different. It's some of the best acting for my taste anyway. Some of the best acting I've ever seen because he had me played so hard that I didn't know who he was. And then when I realized who he was, I was like, oh my gosh.
Right.
But it's incredible. It was very triggering, but it's an incredibly, to my mind, well done movie. Really well done.
Agreed. Like Split. I just write it down. I was like, yeah, I should have reformed this list. American Werewolf in London, Split. Those two should have been on there because just like The Good Son's not technically horror, but there are.
But it's got that psychological horror drive to it as well, as far as I'm concerned.
Right. And Split, just like James McAvoy's acting alone, I don't think anyone's going to debate you there on how amazing he was. Someone who matters. Sorry.
Yeah, no one who matters.
Someone who matters. No one who matters will disagree with you. James McAvoy is top notch in that for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Tammy and Walt, we have loved having you guys on.
Yeah.
Now is the time where we roll out the red carpet for you and you let all of our listeners and viewers know where they can find you on social media and what the hours are for Edge of Insanity.
We are on Facebook. So you can find us on Facebook, Edge of Insanity, and Instagram, Edge of Insanity Haunt, I think it ends in Haunt. And we do have a website, but mostly we focus on the social media. We have one weekend remaining. We are open Friday and Saturday this coming weekend, 8 to 12. Tickets are best purchased online because they sell out very, very quick. Last night we were sold out 3 hours before the show started.
Wow, nice.
So all the walk-ups were sad pandas.
Yeah.
So we try to keep some buckets open to accommodate some walk-ups, but we can only accommodate so many people. We're a small venue.
Yeah.
So buy online if you can. And if you are going to do a walk-up, you might want to show up by 7:45 to see if I can get you in somewhere.
Mhm.
But if you wait until 9:30 or 10, we'll see you next year.
Yeah.
There's nothing we can do about it.
Great.
And you folks, you'll be able to find the links to that below. We'll also get a link for tickets. So it's easy for people to purchase tickets as well online. We'll make sure to have those in the show notes below. And I'm a firm believer that a gentleman wears a watch. The art of watchmaking is timeless, boasting science, sophistication, and feats of engineering. Upgrade your gentleman game by checking out the elegant and fashionable collections of watches by Aventino. Aventino watches are simple, their designs go with everything, and their craftsmanship is of the highest standards. Save 15% on your order with the code HOEN15, enjoying the Aventino lifestyle. Mine, of course, as you all know by now, is from the Gemini series.
Yeah.
Love the watch.
Love the watch.
Love the watch.
Also looking to start a podcast? Buzzsprout is hands down the easiest and best way to launch, promote, and track your podcast. With Buzzsprout, you'll get a great looking website, audio players you can drop, detailed analytics, tools to promote, and more. Following the link in the show notes lets Buzzsprout know we sent you. Gets you a $20 Amazon gift card if you sign up for a paid plan, and help support our show. So let's create something great together with Buzzsprout.
All right. And again, Tammy and Walt, thank you very much for being with us.
Yes, thanks, guys.
We
Thank
enjoyed
you.
it.
Honestly, it was super, super fun.
It
And
was.
be happy to do it again whenever.
Yeah, film fans, it doesn't take much to get us sitting and talking about film.
Right.
It's just like
Yeah.
gloating over what we enjoyed and what we didn't, does it? All right, and we will be back again, folks, in 2 weeks with more special guests. You might want to have your glasses on for the next one. And we'll be seeing you all in 2 weeks.
Yep.
With our
Also, if you guys have a get to the point review of your own you'd want to share, please leave it in the comments below on the YouTube. And we'll go ahead and read out the best one on our next podcast.
and thanks for listening. We hope you all have a great week. See you next time.
All right, see ya.
Get to the point.